Well, hello there, and thank you so much for joining us today on The Best of Both Worlds. Today we have a special guest, Joanne Knight, with us, so stay tuned. Welcome back, Joanne.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Well, I'm glad you came back so we could finish this quilt.
Good to see you again.
It's a really cute little quilt that we've been working on, and it's Barn Chicks.
Barn Chicks.
Barn Chicks. And so this segment will finish that up, and she's going to show us some really fun stuff. Plus, I'm going to get to do some freehand on it.
Yes, you're going to do some freehand in the background of one of these stars, and I'm going to show point-to-point concatenating.
Ooh, that sounds really fun. So let's do it.
Now, Linda, you can do amazing freehand. I have to have the Statler do my backgrounds for me. So this is what I'm going to do on this particular star background. And then we're going to let you do some freehand on one of them. This is a new feature with version 6, and it's called concatenating. And it means that I'm going to place 2 or more patterns on the quilt at the same time. So in order to do that, I would select my first pattern, hold down my control key on my keyboard, and select my second pattern. I'm placing 2 patterns this time. I'm going to go to my point-to-point icon and make sure that point-to-point pattern is selected, and then I simply have to place it on the quilt. You don't always have to have a boundary with point-to-point, but it's always a really good idea to do one. So I have my pattern selected. I'm going to walk to the quilt and I'm going to place my boundaries so that I know where these patterns are going to fit. I'm going to mode over to the boundary from my keypad, and this boundary is going to be nothing more than a reference for me, so I can make bigger clicks to be able to place these patterns in. But I am going to click the outside seam lines of the boundary, and because I'm not using pattern to boundary, I can also click the inside seam lines of the star points. I'm back to where I started. Let's go up to this point and out. This is just for a visual for me, just a reference to make sure that those patterns are going to stay in the white and stay out of the black, because I'm going to be using point to point. Down to this point, down to this point, and stop. And that's the outline of our pattern. I have my pattern selected. I'm going to mode over to my target, hit my select key. The pattern that I start with, that I selected first, is my first click. So I'm clicking here, then here, up to the other side of that point, over to that one. This is just so cool because they are all going to sew out continuously without stopping. Hit stop. This is a pattern by Anita Shackelford, and I can still adjust them as individual patterns. But Linda, they're going to sew that entire background in one sewing.
That's amazing. I love it.
Ready, set, quilt. And Linda, this is how I do freehand on the Statler.
That looks so good.
Quick and easy.
Yeah, I love it. It's fabulous.
All done. Quick and easy.
All right,
Your turn.
I get to freehand.
Yes, you do.
Okay. Okay, Joanne, for my freehand on the Statler, I like to just put it in the power assist. Sometimes I'll drop the belts, but I'm not going to this time. And I'm in constant. I love to do it in constant. Not
Okay.
always, but I'm going faster, so I like to be able to do that.
I can't wait to see this.
You should try it sometime.
Sometimes.
It's really fun. It's fun. And, you know, as I looked at the quilt, I was thinking of feathers, but then I changed my mind because there are no feathers on here. Even though there's chicken feathers probably, they're not the same as the feathers that I do. So I'm going to do a real simple design that I know all the viewers can do this. So if they can, you can.
I'll practice.
All right. So I think I'm in 70. Well, okay. I'm in 80. That's okay.
Okay.
Okay. And as I go around, I'm also going to kind of go along these seams. So I start out like this, and I'm doing just kind of coming up here like these with arcs. Now notice that I'm really keeping it in a kind of an arc shape. And then I'm going to do a pinwheel in here. This one is an oval because this is in.
It's really holding that area down.
Yes, and that's in that triangle that's that isosceles triangle. I remember geometry. Then I'm going to come over here, I'm going to touch that side, and not touch the other two sides.
Okay.
And see how my body just kind of goes with it? I'm just sort of body quilting here. And I know these are not as perfect as yours can be on the Statler, but it is freehand and it is so fun. It is so fun.
And you're controlling the length of those stitches because you're in constant.
I am, and I just sort of move it at the same speed, and you get, I'm going to just do the one hand here so he can do that. You get used to doing that, and until you do, you can use regulated all the time.
Okay.
Now remember on this one, I'm going to follow this over and touch there, and then leave some space there.
All right.
So that I can get out. And I'm going to come in, reverse.
You have to have an exit plan.
You have to have an exit plan. Come over, and then again, just go right into the next one.
Nicely done.
It fills it in really well, but it is a very simple design, seriously. And it does help if you have both hands, and then you just sort of rotate on your ankles to do those circular designs. So again, touch, touch, leave something to come out with. You can even count as you're going in, you know, so that each of those rolls are about the same. But you know they're not going to be absolutely perfect.
Well, that's the good part about freehand.
Is that okay?
That's perfect.
I mean, you've got perfection on the rest of your quilt.
It fits the mood.
Okay. You want to try a circle?
No, thank you.
You're sure?
I'm sure.
Last chance.
I want to watch you do it.
Try. And then I just do a few stitches to secure that.
Okay, Linda, for this last star block, we're not going to click every single corner and triangle. We're going to place a different pattern in here that is going to quilt both the white area and the star points, which are black at the same time. So because we're going to do that, we have switched to Superior Monopoly thread. And I have that loaded. I'm going to click my boundary. Always click a boundary. Even though I'm going to be using point to point, I still want to have that boundary. Because this pattern by Joyce Lundgren is going to go over the white and the black, I want to define the center part of this block. The pattern is selected. I'm going to mode over to point, and I'm going to select point, and I'm going to click in the bottom left, over to my bottom right, up to my top right, top left, down to the bottom, stop, and that has placed that pattern in all of the different triangles and squares of this particular block. All I have to do now is adjust them if I decide to and quilt them. Mode over to the quilt button, hit my start, and let's quilt that out. And you're going to notice it's going to go over both the white and the black, but the way that this pattern was designed, it's going to quilt a different element in the black than it does in the white. So we don't have any stopping on this pattern either.
I love what that's doing, Joanne. It's putting a totally different pattern in the star. So it's made for this Ohio star, isn't it?
It is. It is made for this pattern, and because it's so easy to place, because remember, all we did was click the corners. But yet it looks like that we quilted the background separately from the star points.
How innovative.
Very. It sure makes the work a whole lot easier also.
It's really pretty. It sort of has a
done.
sheen on the black, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah,
It does.
I like it.
And because it's the monopoly, if you go just a little bit outside the lines, it's okay.
Oh, yeah. That's always good to know.
Always good to know. Because sometimes we don't always color inside the lines.
No.
Finished.
Awesome.
Done.
Wow, and that means the whole quilt is finished.
The old quilt is finished, yes.
So we're going to put this up so our viewers can see how awesome it is. Joanne, it has been so enlightening and so fun to have you here and doing this special quilt, which you did for the show.
I did, just for the show.
And I think we should call it Hot Chicks, don't you?
That'll work. It was fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming.
It was a good play date.
Will you come again sometime?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to watch next time.